Hey you guys, it's your girl Internet, and today we coming at you with a video, and it's called It Begins. Aimed immigrants rob police at gunpoint. Why is they making it hard? Oh my god, they making it even harder for themselves. Why are they doing it? I have no idea. But the more and more people they let in, the worse things are gonna be. Yeah, I mean, it's just how it is. That's the worst thing. It's gonna get worse until, I mean, it ain't gonna be no place for us. We just gonna be here struggling like them. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn your notifications on so you can see me, and let's get into this video. I mean, cause we already struggling, so.
2 men have been arrested for stealing an off-duty officer's car at gunpoint in Manhattan. They're charged with criminal possession of a machine gun. Police say the 2 men approached the officer and demanded his keys at West 146th.
So a shocking new wave of...
This is my part. How can they get a machine gun? So they bringing the stuff with them when they leave in their country. Obviously, are they just get it in some kind of way? But you gonna do stuff you ain't got no business, but you gonna, man, like, they already don't want people to put labels on them. But doing things like this is putting labels on them. Like, how could you not? I don't get that part. I don't get that part.
of crime has fallen upon New York City, but although critics are quick to blame the asylum crisis, what nobody wants to admit is that although New York's laws make it a sanctuary for immigrants, they also make it a sanctuary for criminals.
It's growing outrage after yet another video emerges showing police getting attacked by migrants.
It happened as they were trying to make an arrest at a shelter on Randall's Island.
The Adams administration is still currently reviewing whether to install metal detectors at some of these shelter locations.
Christian Inga is set to face a Queens judge on a slew of charges linked to an attack in Casino Park.
Other residents on this University Heights block believe recent asylum seekers toured a park.
Coming in on motorcycles and mopeds.
So we've seen a spate of some very brazen cell phone robberies that's been attributed to a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, which has its origins at a prison outside of Caracas.
Anytime you have 3,000 people who are placed in an environment that they cannot work, they have to sit around all day, things like this have the potential to happen.
We waited 7 hours, you heard, all day, all night for him.
This man says Ingalandi likely would have gotten away if not for him and about 6 other people who helped detain.
Crime is now so bad in New York, some are now calling for a repeal of its sanctuary city status. But what nobody's talking about is that even if you take away every single one of the city's sanctuary policies, you're still stuck with a justice system that makes this place a sanctuary for criminals no matter where they're from. A haven, so to speak, for violent gangs to roam our streets on mopeds, stealing phones and purses, where you'll also find open-air theft markets operating in front of the very stores crooks are stealing from, and where if you get in trouble for anything, you can assault the police and be released without bail. Just like the 6 asylum seekers that shocked the nation with their attack on the NYPD late last year, an attack we now know has emboldened every criminal in this city. And we're not just talking about asylum seekers. Over 200,000 of whom have come to New York, most with the intention of obeying the law and starting a new life for themselves. But right now, the city still has a shelter population of around 65,000 people, all of whom were promised jobs, but are now trapped in tiny hotel rooms in America's most expensive city, which is no excuse for crime, certainly, but it doesn't need to be because the justice system here makes excuses for criminals every single time they get arrested. And no matter what crime someone commits, 9 times out of 10, the district attorney's office will drop or downgrade the charges until dangerous repeat offenders are either set free completely or let off with a minor slap on the wrist. But it gets even worse because for months, reports have been circulating of dangerous gangs exploiting the U.S. southern border, using it to infiltrate our city with their underlings, who are now reportedly making alliances with local New York gangs, expanding their criminal empires and recruiting vulnerable individuals from within New York's own shelter populations. But what's most alarming are the latest attacks on police, which keep happening because if the police aren't safe in this city, no one is.
No. Sure not.
armed men believed to be Venezuelan migrants carjacked an off-duty NYPD officer in Harlem. What's the solution here? How do we stop this surge in migrant crime?
Well, we need to secure the border, Stuart. We need more border personnel.
Did you hear that? We're not going to. Now, whether or not you agree with that statement, one thing's for sure, we've got elevated levels of crime because people don't really seem to care what happens to them after they attack the police. And in this story, two dangerous individuals robbed a police officer of his personal vehicle when he was off duty. It all happened at 11:30 in the evening as the officer was sitting in his 2020 BMW, which was black. And the criminals who approached the officer may have thought they were just going through a normal carjacking, which they'd probably done before. Either way, these crooks, they approached the black BMW the officer was sitting in with their weapons drawn, and when the officer tried to draw his weapon, they knocked it out of his hand, disarming him. And then they demanded his keys, got in the car, and sped off into the night. But wait until you hear how heavily armed these thugs were.
Jose Rivera and Jomar Crespo are charged with criminal possession of a machine gun, firearm, among other charges. Police say the two men approached the officer and demanded his keys.
Did you hear that? These criminals had fully automatic weapons. That is a level of firepower, a force multiplier that puts the entire city in danger that the police may not even be able to defend against. In fact, we're talking about a level of armament that might require a military response. Now, although the criminals in question gave information stating they were from Connecticut, the New York Post has revealed that they are actually recent immigrants from Venezuela. And apparently these guys have tattoos that link them to dangerous Venezuelan gangs. But that's not all. Apparently the names they gave to police might be fake. Apparently they told police they had left their IDs at home, which is pretty convenient since their plan that evening was to go on a crime spree and steal vehicles at gunpoint. But after stealing the officer's black BMW, the car itself was found just a few blocks away from where the robbery happened. They had ditched it, and police were able to track down the vehicle because when it was stolen, inside was one of the officer's Apple devices. So they just pulled it up on one of his other phones and found out where the car was. And after finding the abandoned vehicle on a side street in central Harlem, police were able to find the criminals nearby. And the reason this is so frightening is because even though these people identified themselves to the police, we have no way of knowing if what they told the police was accurate. And that's because apparently before people enter the United States, they have a habit of discarding their identification.
Some, though, are dumping their IDs altogether. I have come across piles and piles of discarded documents on the U.S. side. This is happening before they're even apprehended by Border Patrol agents. Now, the idea here...
Now, look, there could be many reasons why someone would want to get rid of their ID before entering the United States. After all, not everybody who's come here wants to join a gang and commit crime. And many people are under the impression that coming into the country without any ID means you get a clean slate because the authorities have to record whatever you provide to them and hope that you've done it honorably without lying. But apparently this type of system is being exploited by a small minority of people who wish to come here and do something other than live the American dream. There are criminals who have it in their best interest to sneak into the country and make their way to Sanctuary City.
Now that doggone well, they are not finna come up in here and tell the truth. If someone ditched their ID, they are trying to do something they ain't got no business doing. Duh. It don't take a rocket science to figure that out. I mean, then they got a bunch of them that's up in a... The only thing that... This is what they need to do. Them men, they got them symbols on them and stuff like that. Send them back. Send them back. They try to come back, shoot them. Pew, pew. That's it. You're not going to come over here to our country doing all that craziness. No. You're not going to do that. If you're going to come over here, and okay, you know, I understand some people, they change their life and stuff. Okay. One warning. You do one thing, you getting deported. One thing, that's it. So I advise you, even if you do got that symbol on you, because like I said, I get people trying. One thing, you're gone. That's it.
Where they can live for free while living a life of crime by taking advantage of the generous safety net offered to the less fortunate by cities like New York. And they're able to do this because so many people in other parts of the world are living in such dire circumstances that they'll do anything to get into the country. And the last thing they want is for their name to pop up in some database that links them to somebody who they're not, or for their country of origin to be the reason they can't get into this country in the first place. Which is a huge problem because even though most of the people entering the country don't wish to harm us or the police, the next person on our list did something even worse than a carjacking, and they never should have been in the country to begin with.
Oh, God.
So here we are in a public park in New York City, an environment that you'd think would be safe because this is a place where people go to relax, they've got their guard down, but sadly New York City's lawless and could be some of the most dangerous anywhere in town.
Christian Inga is set to face a Queens judge on a slew of charges linked to an attack in Casino Park. Police say Inga is a migrant from Ecuador who entered the U.S. through Eagle Pass, Texas.
So this is an unbelievable story, not only because of the awful deed that was committed, but because of what it took to bring this person to justice. So this story revolves around a recent immigrant from Ecuador who singled out two teenagers in a park the other week, where sadly he attacked them during broad daylight in the middle of the afternoon. But even though this attack took place in an environment many thought to be safe, and even though the teenagers went and got help almost immediately, the perpetrator still escaped from the scene of the crime. And this person would have escaped if it weren't for some incredible detective work by the NYPD, because they were able to obtain security camera footage revealing the suspect's face. And after those images were released to the general public, it didn't take long for locals to figure out who this person was and where to find him. And even though criminals in our city might not be afraid of the police, you definitely don't want to step on the toes of local New Yorkers who are upset with you.
This video shows Christian Giovanni Ingolandi on the ground just outside this deli, minutes after Jeffrey Flores says he spotted him.
I come and I just grab him out the store.
Flores and others in the neighborhood say they'd seen him at the store earlier and waited for hours to see if he'd return. The group says they used this belt to tie.
Yeah, so the type of justice this person got when the locals apprehended him is entirely different than the way the justice system in New York normally operates. And what's surprising is not only did this person suffer immediate consequences for their actions before being turned over to police, the district attorney is not prosecuting the Good Samaritans who ended up apprehending this person, which sadly happens a lot to local residents of this city when they defend themselves. But once the images of this suspect were released, local residents realized that this is someone who frequented a local bodega, and they decided to set up camp there and wait for him all day. And mind you, all of this transpired a couple of days after the attack took place, before anybody had been arrested.
24-year-old Jeffrey Flores recognized Inga when the NYPD released these clear photos of the 25-year-old riding away on a bicycle.
He really tried to run for his legs, but he couldn't.
Inga was known to buy.
You know, I hate to say this, but in New York City with our progressive justice system, had the police been the ones to find this guy and had they been a little rough with him when they brought him in, he may have in fact been released, but since it wasn't the police that he had to deal with, things didn't turn out that way. And people are referring to the locals that caught this guy as heroes of the neighborhood, which
they are.
Which they should be commended for.
Yeah.
We waited 7 hours, you heard, all day, all night for him.
This man, who goes by Forge and didn't want to give his real name, says Ingolandi likely would have gotten away if not for him and about 6 other people who helped detain him.
You know what we do?
You know, if angry New Yorkers weren't more frightening than the police we have here, I doubt we'd be here about this. But not only did the locals do their own detective work and set up their own sting operation, they were able to hold on to this guy and keep him in one place until the police arrived to take him away in handcuffs. But even though it seems the criminal involved in this tragic story may actually face the justice they deserve, that's sadly not something that can be said about the criminals in our next story, who've not only figured out how to take full advantage of New York's generous safety net, but are using that safety net in order to expand their criminal empires right here under our very noses. And critics say what you're about to see is the predictable result of loopholes being exploited in New York's sanctuary city policies and also its sanctuary laws that hide and harbor criminals.
So we've seen a spate of some very brazen cell phone robberies in New York City that's been attributed to a Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua, which has its origins at a prison outside of Caracas. A number of the gang members escaped in September 2023 when the Venezuelan government raided the prison.
Yeah, that's definitely not great news, and I don't think that's information that's being widely broadcasted.
No.
It's kind of scary, to be honest with you, because we keep hearing about crimes being committed at our border, and we keep hearing about the work that's being done down there, but we don't hear about the crimes that are being committed in other countries, which may have a direct impact on the stuff that our country's experiencing. But to hear that a Venezuelan prison break happened right before our border became overwhelmed does not exactly inspire insane levels of confidence. And although Customs and Border Patrol are operating much like the NYPD here, doing the best they can with the limited resources at their disposal and the limited scope of their mission, is it outrageous to think that the systems we have at the border are not 100% perfect and that some of the bad guys aren't aren't able to slip through the cracks. And to make matters worse, it seems like the wrong people are doing everything they can to take advantage of a system that's trying to do the best for people who need it. And those would be the people fleeing poverty, trying to leave a dangerous environment and start over. But look at this. The 19-year-old who was arrested just a couple of weeks ago after attacking the police admitted that he had been recruited by a Venezuelan crime gang here in New York with the goal of committing snatch and grab attacks, going after purses, iPhones, and apparently the criminal in this story has one of those tattoos that links him back to this same dangerous gang, which is currently working to expand its sphere of influence here in New York City.
Law enforcement says they are infiltrating cities in the United States and maybe forming alliances with gangs that are already established here. We're seeing the presence of Tren Yaragua in New York City. We're seeing all these brazen cell phone robberies where two guys on a moped will go onto a sidewalk in Manhattan and they will steal a cell phone out of the hands of somebody who's actually talking on the phone.
And apparently they are expanding their operations in the worst way possible. You know those mopeds that you see parked out front of many of the shelters and on pretty much every street corner? Well, those aren't just the delivery vehicle of choice or the commuting vehicle of choice for somebody that wants to save money. They are actually the perfect chariot for a criminal intent on stealing something and riding away quickly. And apparently these criminals single out people who are on their phone distracted in a public space where there's room for them to escape after they get their hands on that person's device while they're riding their bike. Individuals walking with their phone in their pocket with their head on a swivel are much less appealing targets than those who are utterly distracted, possibly even wearing noise-canceling headphones. And to make matters worse, we all carry so much information on these little things right here. If this is gone and they take it from me while it's unlocked and I'm using it to talk to somebody, what they can do, they can open this thing up, they could send my money to who knows where, and I'll never see it again. But the real reason this is frightening is because the asylum-seeking gang member who was first...
That's my thing. If you can do all of this, if you can figure out how to steal something, watch people just so you can take their phones and stuff like that, if you can do all that, that means your ass can go and work. You can go figure out a plan, a job, clean yourself up, look and see who working, take your little moped ass on over there to New Hampshire and all like that. Go to the Bronx or whatever like that, New Jersey and stuff, and get a job. If it's that dang on, you know it's that serious. You ain't got to sit up there and be trying to find money to try to wire to somewhere else and all of that. That don't make it makes no sense. Criminals are the most smartest people. They can just figure out how to, I can just do this, put this on here and stuff like that. Now they can do all that. But something easy is go get your tail up in the morning you can't do. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. I'm glad he bringing out like all the stories. And like I said, not all of these people are bad people. But the majority are. Because they making everyone look at them a certain type of way.
Busted earlier this year for running a moped crime spree, made a chilling admission when authorities got their hands on him. He warned everyone when he was apprehended that this whole gang-related crime problem is much bigger than just him and his little crew that was operating out of the Bronx. And essentially what you have now are operations all over town of people stealing phones and bringing them back to hideouts where criminals use tools to access them if they're still locked before draining bank accounts and selling these phones overseas. On top of that, if the criminals get lucky and they manage to steal a backpack, there may be other valuables inside of it like expensive headphones, credit cards, cash, or even a laptop. But this brings up the real reason why New York is in the middle of a frightening new crime wave. Are sanctuary city laws partly to blame? Well, they certainly don't help, but the real problem is all of these criminals that are getting arrested, a lot of them have prior offenses, and because we don't punish crime in New York, if you commit low-level offenses, like let's say you go out and you shoplift and you steal and you break into the subway and you use that without paying, well, our laws aren't going to lock you up. They're not going to incarcerate you, so you get plenty of practice being a low-level criminal school so that when you decide to graduate to the big leagues and do stuff that's really bad, you already have experience evading the police, evading capture, stealing things to make a living off the books. It's a horrible system, and it's the laws that protect criminals that are the real issue. If those laws were tough, people would not come here to exploit our safety net and live lives of crime. But that's exactly what's happening. And unless New York City decides to do something about its justice system, the idea of it being a sanctuary city is always going to be something else in the background. What do you think about that? Is that true? What should New York City do to get a handle on its crime wave? Let me know. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
What I feel like they should do, to get a handle, start deporting them. They come in here with no ID, deport them. That'll start hipping some of it because I'm pretty sure the women and the children, they gonna have their ID. And then plus that's a child. Well, they gonna have, because I know our children over here, they have their social security card. Some kind of form ID. If you don't have it, get in the back because you finna get deported. That right there will start, I feel like. They're just me. I'm not for sure. But that would be my first thing I would start doing. If y'all don't have no identification, don't nobody know who you are, you could be broke out of prison. Goodbye. And just leave it at that. But then you know what they'll do? They'll start shooting up the place. Because they don't have no ID. And they being got mad because you telling them, no, you can't come up in here. You can't get no shelter or nothing without an ID. Then if the police catch you on the street with no ID, you're going to get deported again. It don't matter if you don't have, it don't matter if I see you in Walmart and the police ask you for your ID, you got to give it to them. And if you can't give it to them, you can't provide that for him, bye. Because you need to keep your ID on you. Point blank period. I understand sometimes people can, forget it. I forgot my ID. But I'm pretty sure someone can bring it to you. Or if you over there by yourself, I mean, come on, they ain't gonna be more likely over here by themselves. So they better give you a phone call. So you can't find it, bye you go. But you guys, you tell me what y'all thought about the video, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye, you guys.